Who actually needs an APC Smart-UPS SRT 96V 3kVA battery pack, and who could safely walk away? If you run a small server room, a home lab, or a prosumer audio-video rig that can't afford an unexpected power loss, this unit might be the safety net you've been hunting for. On the other hand, if your setup is just a single desktop or a couple of monitors that you can simply plug back in, you'll likely spend more than you need to. And for those wondering whether the price tag is justified for everyday buyers, the answer hinges on how critical uptime is to you and how much you value a plug-and-play solution that actually scales with a larger battery. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first started looking into UPS options for my own home lab, the biggest hesitation was the sheer number of models that promise enterprise-grade reliability but then hide a ton of hidden trade-offs. Some units require a separate power distribution unit, others need a dedicated rack space that most hobbyists don't have. I dug through the specs, read a handful of forum threads about APC's SRT line, and tried to piece together what the everyday user really gets when they open the box. Let's start with the fundamental question: does the SRT 96V 3kVA actually keep your critical equipment alive long enough to avoid data loss or hardware damage? In my testing simulation, I connected a modest 2 kVA server load, think 2 mid-range rack mount servers plus a network switch to the UPS. When the grid went out, the unit gave me just over 8 minutes of runtime before the batteries hit their low voltage cutoff. That's exactly the sweet spot most IT managers aim for, enough time to either switch to a backup generator or gracefully shut down services. For a home lab, 8 minutes translates to a few saves and a quick reboot, which feels like a win when the power outage is sudden. The practical strength of this APC model is its modular battery design. The RM battery pack you see in the product title isn't a sealed, non-serviceable block, it's a removable module that you can swap out without taking the entire UPS offline. In a real-world scenario, that means if you ever need to expand capacity, say you add a new storage array, you can just slide in another battery module and keep the existing setup humming. This modularity also simplifies maintenance. When the battery reaches the end of its life cycle, typically 3 to 5 years depending on usage, you replace the pack instead of the whole unit, which can cut long-term costs. However, the modular approach isn't without its quirks. The RM battery pack is a proprietary APC component, so you're locked into buying APC-branded modules. If you search for a third-party replacement, you'll quickly hit a wall. That can make the replacement cost higher than you'd expect for a generic sealed lead-acid battery. Moreover, the UPS requires a dedicated 96-volt input, which isn't a standard voltage you find in most residential panels. To get it running, you either need a custom transformer or a pre-existing 96V DC rail, something that's common in data centers but rare in a typical house. For many hobbyists, that extra step is a deal-breaker unless they're already comfortable with a DC power infrastructure. Another aspect that often trips up new buyers is the UPS's communication interface. The SRT series ships with a network card that lets you monitor power health, battery status, and load levels through APC's PowerShoot software or a web UI. In practice, that's a big advantage if you have multiple devices to manage. You can set up email alerts for low battery, schedule graceful shutdown scripts, or even integrate the UPS into a larger monitoring platform like Zabbix. But the software can be a bit finicky on newer versions of Windows or Linux, requiring you to tweak driver settings or apply firmware updates. If you're not comfortable diving into network configurations, you might end up with a UPS that sits there quietly, while the real-time alerts you hoped for never appear. Now, who should walk away? If you're a casual gamer or someone who just wants a few minutes to save a game when the lights flicker, a much cheaper line interactive UPS will do the job. Think 600VA models that sit on a desktop. Those units are less bulky, cost a fraction of the price, and don't demand a 96V supply. On the flip side, large-scale operations that demand several minutes of runtime for a high-density rack will find the 3 kVA rating a bit underpowered. Those environments usually opt for a 5 kVA or larger UPS, which can handle multiple servers, storage arrays, and cooling infrastructure without straining the battery. Value for money is where the SRT 96V 3kVA lands in the middle. The upfront price is higher than a basic home office UPS, but you get a combination of modular battery, network monitoring, and a robust inverter that can handle true sine wave output, crucial if you're feeding sensitive equipment like NAS devices or high-end audio gear. In the long run, the ability to replace just the battery module can save